evening.
Good evening, ma'am.
So let's get started. I don't know if you all did. Let's use the chat box extensively. Okay, I'll ask you certain questions and maybe you can just type a Y or a no or whatsoever it is. So I just wanted to know from you all, how has it been? How has the journey been so far? I'm sure you would have all received some reading material. Have you all received the material? If yes, just type a yes on the chat box. Okay, great. I would like everyone's response. Have you received the reading material? Now, my next question being, have you been able to go through the reading material, at least the first bit of it, some portion of the reading material? Did you all get a chance to just take a look at what goes into it? Oh, fantastic. Great. So nice. Maybe you have just touched upon the basics of the IPR. Is that right? Is my understanding correct? At least the preliminary chapters of the IPR, which gives you a basic introduction, etc. Okay, okay. And the material, if you observe, the reading material also contains certain articles. It also contains certain videos that you can just check out go through the videos. These articles or case studies are very, very useful actually. You can, and for students there, you can just make some short notes out of some really, really interesting articles which we were able to pick out from the SEC Online or WIPO or any of the other very good resources. So they are well curated for you to understand, for you to be able to understand the subject better. I would also suggest, other than just going through the material, I would also suggest that you stop by, read a particular article, make some short summaries out of it, and then take get the key takeaways of those articles so that it will be very helpful for you in the times to come. Okay, great. So what I'm going to do today is we will start off with the same fundamentals of IPR. Why fundamentals? Why do we want to touch upon the basics? So much of basics, which we have probably studied in school and other things. It is just to get a fresh perspective and just to understand what is this whole concept of IPR, and more importantly, uh, yeah, where do you find them on the EDC reader, and I think there'll be a small QR code or something that will be provided to you, right? You can just try and click on the QR code. If that works, and you will be able to access the EDC reader or the SEC online link for that particular article. You'll be able to read through that particular article. It could be EDC reader, it could be SEC online also. We'll keep it as interacting as possible. There's nothing like a particular time where I have to stop by and discuss this with you. You can just continue. I'm just starting with a particular presentation. Now, if we have read all about IPR in school, in college, why do we want to read this all over again? Why do we want to understand the fundamentals all over again? Just to get a fresh perspective, and also, just to see what is the real rationale behind all of these. The other important thing being that, as we are into our practice, there are a couple of very, very common questions that are asked by our clients, which we need to sort of prepare ourselves by understanding the fundamentals of intellectual property rights. So in this context, this is the subject today, that's fundamentals of IPR. And I will start with a short case study. Okay, not necessarily that we have to answer all of it right now, but please take a look at this particular case study and tell me if this resonates with some kind of questions. If you have been interning or if you have practiced in this particular area, do tell me, does this resonate with the kind of questions the clients ask us? Please go through this for a minute or two, and I will want your answers. Deepak ji, I would request you to kindly keep your audio mute. I can hear my own voice. Yeah, thank you. Keep your audio mute unless you want to talk. Yeah, did you all go through this? Okay. Maybe you can all just start one by one. Just very generally answer the 4 questions, whatever comes to your mind right now. Because after this, at the end of maybe the 6 months, your answering to this question may be far better. That is my benchmark. That's what I want to see. That's how I want to evaluate. I would like all of you to answer these questions. So if I were to ask you the first question, if you have to prepare a comprehensive list of IP that can be identified for protecting this upgrade, what would be your answer? You can please type your answers on the chat box, or by raise of hand, you can just come online on the audio and just present your answers. I'm just touching upon the first question. Trademark, okay. The company is looking for a comprehensive IP protection, not one or two. Yes, please go ahead. I want answers. And it's a pretty longish discussion that we have today. So the faster you do, the more time we'll have to explore many more things through the discussion. Go ahead, please share your thoughts. Deepak ji, Sachin, Pooja, just type whatever you feel is a comprehensive IP for upgrade. Is the technology good and they want to procure a patent, or can they go under copyrights, or is it a trade secret that they want to protect? Pulkit very rightly mentioned trademark for the word, the very word mark that is upgrade. Yeah, please go ahead. Okay, as you type your answers, what is the right time to consider IP protection? Okay, Sachin says copyright, trademark, industrial design. Oh, okay, industrial design, we'll have to consider this, Sachin, whether this category, this kind of innovation can fall under this. Okay, what is the right time to consider IP protection? So Pulkit says before making it public. Fair enough, especially when it comes to a patent. Suppose you are looking for a patent protection to this, definitely before you make things public, or if there is, unless there is a publication that happens, or maybe, if they are presenting it at a conference or creating prototypes, okay, and bringing them in the market, even before all of these, it would be a better thing that they can look for a patent protection. What about trademark and suppose copyright protection and other things? When can they consider this?
Ma'am, can you just repeat the question?
Yeah, so suppose he wants to go for a trademark protection, like you said, right? When can he consider, when do you think is the right time for EduTech to consider the protection, the application? Is it also at the time before they go public, they go into the market?
No, ma'am, that can be done after they go public, but it's advised that they can, if possible, they can do it before going public so that
Very
they
good.
don't invite any disputes.
Yes, yes. So there we have an option, right? In terms of trademarks, we have an option. Either even before you start the business activity, or maybe a little later as it gains traction and it gains a secondary meaning. That can also be possible. What about copyright? Suppose they want to go for a copyright protection of the algorithm, of the code, of the source code. When should they consider? What is the right time for them to consider? All of you, please participate. Okay, we will just keep this going. Okay, we'll keep these questions in mind as we progress with the discussion. What about the third one? How to leverage IP to create value and drive growth? This is a very common question. It is not as per the law or whatsoever it is, right? It's more a generic question. How do you leverage? Suppose your client asks you, what is the purpose? Why should I go for all these intellectual property and spend so much money? What is it that I will leverage to create value and drive growth? What are you going to answer? How are you going to convince your client? How to leverage IP? Yes, to keep a check on the competition. Very good. Yes, you create value, you drive growth. The value, if there is an economic value at all that you want to create, you create it by licensing and getting royalties on the IP. Good. Very good. And any other thoughts, any other answers? Because the client is asking you, how can I leverage my IP so that I'm able to create a value? It's a value proposition, right? I can create a value and I can also enhance growth. You said trademark. How is that going to leverage their IP? How is that going to leverage their business? These are very generic questions. I'm not going by the law. I'm not going to any particular section, nothing at all. But these are the general questions our clients ask us when they come and sit before us to understand, to get an advice on their intellectual property. Yes, absolutely. Trademark helps you create your brand identity, to position yourself in the market, right? In fact, I'll come to some more very, very interesting concepts as we progress ahead with the trademark aspects, where in case of trademark, identifying the class itself can be so confusing, right? Unless we are very clear about it. So that's how you leverage market exclusivity. Absolutely, absolutely. So these are some of the reasons why we want our clients to go for an IP that it brings them some goodwill and also creates value to their business. What are the IP related risks? That's my fourth question. What are the IP related risks to look out for? What should they look out for? Infringement, absolutely. Good. And then anything else? Anything else other than infringement? Infringement is a very large, it's a very broad terminology. It can include many things in it. Anything else that you feel are the IP related risks? Dilution, very good, excellent. As they progress in their business, right? They should also watch out that people are not using it. They are continuing to respect the intellectual property of the organization, which otherwise can dilute the very trade name or whatsoever it is. If we are just allowing things to happen, right, in the market. Good, excellent. Open source vulnerability, theft, right? You're right. You're right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And you would also understand that, especially when it comes to a quick grading system or something, as in even if you have procured an IP, there is so much data that goes into these kind of softwares, right? In terms of these kind of innovations. The data of so many universities are taken into consideration. So, what should you protect there? What is more important there? The large data of universities are to be protected. So, what is the risk? Data piracy, data theft, absolutely. So these are all interrelated, intertwined, right? You have it's not just IP, it is in relation to the data that goes into the product, it's in relation to the competition laws that go into the product, consumer laws that go into the product, like disparaging of goods or whatsoever it is. So they are all so well connected and interrelated, right? So that is how we view intellectual property rights. That's a very good thing. So good, great going. Keep this question in your mind, okay? And as we progress with the discussions, probably your answers to these questions will get better, or maybe or a little more comprehensive, while you answer these kind of questions to your clients. A very, very practical start, I would say, because this is what our clients would ask us. I'm just going to the next one. It's a small activity for you all. Okay, just take a look at this. Now, I have listed some forms of intellectual property, like, for example, an algorithm for content recommendation, like what Netflix has, right? Or YouTube has for us. Website of a company, company logo, training manual, research paper, design of a toy, crop cultivation method, integrated circuit, and the next thing being, can you name more such things that are entitled to protection as intellectual property rights? Maybe a few more that we can add to this list. What is it in the present age and time that we are seeing? What are the contemporary forms of subject matter that we are seeing that is entitled to an IP protection? A lot of technology is coming our way. Anything that you see and you hear of that is entitled to an IP protection. Yes, a new drug. Very good. Please feel free to chat or come on audio. But the discussion is more important, which otherwise I can just run you through some slides and be done away within 10 minutes of the discussion. But my objective is to engage you here and to take the best of the discussion. Please add to this table where you find things in your surroundings and spaces where you see intellectual property. For example, I would say an ergonomic chair, right? The back, it gives me a backrest where my spine is in the right position. So this ergonomic chair was designed for back pain. We've heard of all these things, right? Maybe the chair that you're sitting on right now could be an ergonomic chair, or it could be an ergonomic mouse that you're using, so that it doesn't harm your finger for a long, despite longer duration of use of the mouse. What else can we think of in this context, like this? One or two more answers, please, and then we proceed further. Deepak ji, Sachin, Pooja, please join the conversation. GI, yes. In the GI, can you just name one category of the GI? GI is a very broad nomenclature. It's one of the forms of intellectual property. Can you name one of the GI tags that you know of? Yeah. Phasing, okay. All right. I thought that was one of the forms of IP, but Pooja says she's been facing a network issue. All right. Digital and technology centric IP. So let us be a little more specific, no? We'll just be a little more specific. One or two instances of something which is more specific. Maybe you say robotic surgeries, right? So that can be one of the things. So just be a little more, a little more clear about or more detailed about what you're saying. Mobile applications, absolutely. The mobile applications, the UI, UX of these mobile applications, websites, and other things, the graphical user interface, all these things that we are experiencing in the present times, they all have an intellectual property. What we can start looking at as IP lawyers from now, the reason why I came up with this exercise is from today, what I want you all to do is start observing things around you, right? And just make a list of those which you feel has an intellectual property to it. It may be as simple as a calendar that you're seeing in front of you, right? Which has something very, very creative, or a YouTube video that you're watching, and what is the creativity about the YouTube video, or maybe a board, a particular logo that you observe, and just see if it is worth an intellectual property, worth a trademark protection, or a coffee mug that you're using, and just see if there is some intellectual property to it. IP is all around us. We don't have to read this as a subject, is what I'm trying to tell you. Because if we are observing things around us, we will be able to make better decisions or provide better advice to our clients. That is the whole thing. Your observation around you becomes very, very important as lawyers, students of law, practitioners, by whatever name I want to call you as. Okay, so this is the task that you have to do henceforth. Every day, as you observe things around you, just see if there is something that is worth an intellectual property right. Okay, so that's the next activity we had. Now, talking about why the whole fuss about intellectual property, right? Why are we talking so much about intellectual property? Now, this is the whole thing. The picture that you're seeing, the picture that you see in the middle is just a fabric. That's what we say low technology, right? Anything which is low technology. Fabric in itself doesn't have anything. Now, for example, if I say silk fabric, there is nothing in a silk fabric. But if I give the same silk fabric to a designer, and if I give the same silk fabric to a garment manufacturer who manufactures bulk garments, what is the difference? What difference do you see? Right? So here he calls it designer because he values and positions his brand in a different way when compared to the garment manufacturer who's looking at high volume, high volume market that he can cater to a larger group of the society. That is the reason why you see that designer clothing where they use a lot of intricate thinking and a lot of intricate work that goes into the designer fabric, which is ultimately brought to the stores, and they are so very expensive. You say there is a difference between a luxury brand and a regular brand, right? So something which is of economic value and other things. This is the way we perceive intellectual property. Where does the client want to position their brand is very, very important for us. Next, this is what you're seeing in the picture. Again, what you see on your left side is a low technology. They're all metal pipes. That's all. Aluminum, metal, steel pipes. What can you do out of these metal pipes? You can do several things, including manufacturing luxury cars. Isn't it? So if you are to make a vessel out of these metal pipes to a luxury car, just look at what is the technology that you can bring in each of these things. So that is the concept of intellectual property. How are they converting a low technology into a higher technology, which is of value, which is of innovation, something which has not been perceived, by anyone before. That is the way we look at it. For example, design of a vessel, design of a mug, right? You are making it out of the same steel, but the way it is designed is so very unique or so very functional. That is where the use of intellectual property comes because they have put in their creativity and their ideas into this subject matter. That is what we as lawyers are going to help them protect, right? From moving it from a low end technology to bringing something innovative in their products. All right. Now, talking about intellectual property, it serves two very basic categories. It has two very basic categories. One is the commercial innovations, and the other is the artistic and literary work. I don't know if how many of you followed the recent budget, and one of the most important aspects they have been talking about in the recent budget is the semiconductor industry, the investments in the semiconductor industry, and another thing that they are looking at very, very seriously is the knowledge creation, content creation. Content industry is going to grow very, very, very high today, which is useful everywhere in terms of education and various other things. So content is going to be a very, very, very big property in the times to come, and your role as lawyers in terms of helping parties protect this content will be something very, very high. I mean, that can be a career in itself. That's the way I would look at it. In fact, today I had the opportunity to attend a session, a panel discussion, which was on traditional performing arts and copyrights. There is so much that is happening in the performing arts space by use of technology as well. So how are we going to help them create, protect their content, protect their performances? So these are some of the things that we'll have to see in the times to come. So when I say commercial innovations, what does commercial innovations relate to? What does this deal with? Commercial innovations. What is this? Industrial properties. Exactly. So it could be a patents, it could be the design, the functionality, the design, and various other things. Patents, trademarks, absolutely. And what about the artistic literature, literary works? It is the copyright or the content space, right? A lot of content comes under this bucket of what we call as artistic, literary, and various other works. When you're talking about commercial innovations, it is the core innovations that happen and they fall under this bucket. Good. Now the question arises, why intellectual property? Of course, some of the rationale that we also saw just some time back, right? But I would suggest that you all read this article, uh, which is on intellectual property and the Indian perspective. It's a very, very interesting article where we always looked at IP from an economic value. But this is one article that I came across, which has also been shared, I think, on the reading material. In your reading material, you can just check this out, which talks about the IP in this particular space, where it says, yes, yes. Have you read this? Have you read this article?
Yeah, ma'am, I have read this.
What
It's
was
in
your
Unit 1.
understanding of this?
Ma'am, to be honest, after this article, it begs a question that if we are going by the like, this is more of after the colonialization, we got through this concept of money making through IP. But the ancient Indian perspective was only that the knowledge creation is the product of the society itself. It's not something that the individual needs to be owner of any knowledge that is created. It's a social effort in itself.
Very good, very good. I'm so glad that you have read this article before you came into this class. It's a very good effort, I would say. And I'm really happy that you have gone through this. That's absolutely right. This is a must-read article, which is why I brought this on the reading material. We've always looked at IP from a very economic value. Just imagine our own ancient Indian wisdom, right? Where we had such huge volumes of, say, Patanjali Sutras or Sushrutas, work in the area of surgery and medicine. Or maybe if you're looking at the composers, various composers, Indian composers who came and created their own compositions, the vast majority of them, right, who came and contributed to this, and nobody were like really running after, going and having a copyright protection to it, or they did nothing about it. So this particular article brings out the insight of how things were perceived during the Vedic times or during the earlier times. This whole idea of intellectual property was perceived as skill. They said, we will provide the skill only to those people who are interested in that skill. Suppose I am an artisan, okay, and I make certain things. I make something out of iron, or I make some pottery, or whatever it is. I will teach pottery only to those people who are interested in pottery. I don't have to publish it to the whole world saying that this is the pottery I have made or this is a unique style of pot that I have created. I will teach this skill so that the others can also work around this. This was the whole concept. However, over the period of time, thanks to all the innovation that kept coming, right, one after another. Of course, there were instances of these trademarks being used in caves. And each one, even during their empires, they had their own logo on the flag. If you remember, right, they had their own symbols. So they all recognized themselves by some names, symbols. That was a very popular thing to happen because they wanted to recognize themselves. That was the whole thing, not really to identify themselves in a particular business. And of course, maybe some of them engraved their names on the caves or engraved their names on certain vessels. Now, if you look at archaeologists, they would say we found typical prototypes of certain vessels, and maybe they had some particular symbol on those vessels, and which indicated that it belonged to a particular age, not necessarily that they sold those vessels under that particular logo. Also, not sure if they have done that. Fast forward, what happened was as technology progressed and as we started calling something as industrial revolutions, the idea of this whole intellectual property started to change. So people started looking at it more from an economic value. And for law students, lawyers, if you start observing intellectual property rights, there's something very unique about this subject. Unlike if you say company law, right? You have companies act, company rules, something else, something else. They are all there. And one after another, they have come in a sequence, in an order. But if you look at intellectual property rights, you have them coming in silos. They have all grown and developed at their own time and space. For example, if you saw copyrights developed probably with the invention of the printing press. Till then, we never thought of all these copyright and other things because everything was handwritten and engraved. It took so much more time for authors or anybody to write so much, be it on the palm leaves or any other, use of any other material on which they had to write or engrave certain things. So and they all remained as single copies. Now, suppose if we said, because of the Nalanda University or Takshashil universities or any of the ancient universities that we had, where we lost a lot of these manuscripts, it was because there were just one piece of that work that was written and kept in certain libraries across the world. And we lost that. But what happened with the introduction of printing press? We started to have multiple copies of it. We could easily print. The moment you can do something, there is a likelihood of protection. Because my work should not be printed without my permission. That is the whole idea. So that is when the concept of copyrights emerged. And then patents. Probably, I don't know how many of you know the story of a patent, how it emerged, right? The patent literary. So it used to be during the king's times. We never had codified patent act of 1345 or something. We don't remember having any of those things. So what typically the inventors used to do was they would write the entire invention, including maybe some diagrams or whatsoever it is. They would write it in an open letter and pass it on to the king. The king would affix his seal and return it back to the inventor. That's what they called as, in French, I think they called it as patent littere, which means an open letter. The concept was open letter. Today, what are we doing? It's the same open letter we are giving to the registry. If you look at a patent specification, we are doing exactly the same principle is being followed. But the registry is affixing a seal and calling it a certified patent. But what has actually happened in the patent? We have disclosed the entire invention to the public at large. And why did we disclose this? Because after 20 years, somebody else will make use of this innovation or invention. That was the whole idea. Look at trademarks. Trademarks must have also developed more during the Industrial Revolution times. Maybe a particular beer if you look at the oldest forms of trademarks, probably it was affixed on certain bottles of beer or something, where they said this is how it should look, this is our identity in the market, and certain other things. That's how the whole concept of trademark came. Leave alone the other forms of IP, which are relatively new. Maybe the 19th century saw design and pattern protection. The later part of the 20th century, like almost towards the end of the 20th century saw, or maybe early part of the 21st century saw, semiconductors, plant variety protection, GI tags, and other things. They are relatively new, I would say. But this, the reason why I mentioned about this is this article has a very different perspective. It doesn't have an economic perspective of why IP. It is a different, it's an ancient wisdom perspective. Finally, what is it that we want to do? What is the other dimension that we want to look at? Today we are talking about SDG, Sustainability Development Goals. What goes into SDG? What are the three aspects that go into SDG? Social, economic, and environment. Socio-economic, and environment. These are the three parameters which are considered for the purpose of your SDG, sustainability. Now, anything that I want to bring into the market, I cannot just greenwash it or whitewash it or do whatever kind of washing. I have to bring it in form and substance. That is sustainability. If I say I'm able to make, in fact, recently I found an inventor, I came across an inventor who has been who has been advocating a lot of sustainability. And she has been converting, used rubber or tire rubber tubes, right? You have the rubber tubes within a tire. She's been using these rubber tubes and to make some kind of a leather out of it. They have a particular process where they convert tubes into some kind of a leather finish, and that leather finish is used across various kinds of products, including bags, in even dustbins. They're making even dustbins out of the waste. So that is the way they are able to transform something which is existing into something new and productive. That is sustainability. So what is the dimension that this would have? It doesn't, definitely it will have an economic value. If she's able to sell some really, good designer bags, they get something, some economic benefit out of it. There is a social impact also here, right? There's a social impact and there is also an environment impact. That is the way we perceive the concept of intellectual property. So apart from this, now this is important because what we saw of that particular article, we are seeing that resonate in the IPs, in the TRIPS agreement. This is something that I found very, very fascinating. If you look at Article 7 of the TRIPS agreement, what does it say? The protection and enforcement of IP rights should contribute to the promotion of technological innovation and to transfer and dissemination of technology to the mutual advantage of producers and users of the technological knowledge. They are not saying that it should benefit only the producer. They are telling that it should be to the mutual advantage of the producers and users of the technological knowledge, and in a manner conducive to the social and economic welfare and to balance their rights and obligations. I'm not saying this. This is what TRIPS has come up in the year 1994, which means they are adopting some of our values, saying that it is not only having an economic value, but also consider the social value of it. Am I correct? So that is the way they are looking at that. This is the definition. This is the way Article 7 of the TRIPS agreement is looking at in terms of protection and enforcement of IP. So what are we trying to balance? This is what we are trying to balance. You might see this in the pharma industry. Is that right? Novartis case and various other things that came up on compulsory licensing. What is it that we are trying to do? We are trying to bring R&D. At the same time, it should be for the benefit of the public. You cannot use the word sustainability or organic product and sell it at a very, very high cost because it is patented. You cannot sell a drug at a very high cost saying that we did a lot of R&D and therefore we should have a return on investment on the R&D. Isn't it? So we want to draw parallels. We want to draw something which is balanced and well suited for the socio-economic welfare of the country. We are now talking so much about Make in India. The AI summit is now ongoing, right? The objective of all of these is to bring this balance and become the world leaders. Now I come to the question. You're all lawyers by profession or law students. You understand the meaning of property because we call intellectual property, right? So is intellectual property really property? What is the definition of property? Probably law students can just go back to see where is the definition of property in any of our acts. Does the General Clauses Act define property, or is Transfer of Property Act defining property? Because each one of them they will define in their own way, no? So you might want to go back and check, or if you have already, let me just check. It's a bundle of rights. Absolutely correct. Yeah. So sorry, Pulkit. I think I missed this. In what context did you mention it is transformed from royal
Uh,
prerogative to a right?
Ma'am, when we were discussing patents, so there's an article shared in the reading material how
Yeah.
patents has evolved. So I was
Absolutely.
just, yeah,
Yeah. Great. Thank you. So yes, so when you say property, property brings you to a certain bundle of rights. And I would also tell the law students, I would suggest the law students, lawyers in the room here, to just go back sometime today and read the formal legal definition of property. Where do you find it? You can come back in the next class and just let us know, right? Or you can post it in the WhatsApp group as to where you found the definition of property. We'll keep the WhatsApp group also live. If I have asked
yeah,
you certain questions, you can probably post your questions, answers, assignment, or something there. Assignments, of course, will have to be uploaded also on the platform. That's a different thing. But small little things like these homeworks can always be discussed on the platform. So, coming to the meaning of property, what is it that we see in a property? What are the characteristic features that we see in a property? Property, you can define it as either as a movable property, immovable property, tangible, intangible, by whatever name you want to call it as. But it has these features, wherein the owner of the property is free to use it as he or she wishes. Am I correct? First of all, we have a freedom to use it. Am I correct? If I have a car,
uh, ma'am, I think the possession is important. Ownership is a altogether different question, and possession.
correct. I'll come to that also a little later. But I mean, the owner, whoever is owning it, will apparently have the possession and therefore free to use it also. Am I correct?
Yeah, if he has the possession, yes.
First of all, I should have the ownership, no? Because if it is possession, my right becomes limited.
Uh,
Suppose
no,
take
ma'am, but
the house for rent.
let's say I live in a rented flat. My owner is a different one, but
Yeah,
uh, right now the thing is I am possessing the flat, so I am free to use whenever I want that, but he can't
correct,
use it.
correct. So, but there again, it becomes a little more limited because you can use it only for the purposes that your owner has told you,
Yeah, according
right?
to the agreement, yes.
Maybe your owner could use this flat for his law firm purpose, but he would have told you, no, no, use it only for residential purpose.
Yeah, yeah, ma'am.
Correct? So that is how it goes. Now, basically, even if you say owner, possessor, or whatsoever it is, should be free to use as he or she wishes. Now, is this
Yes,
unfettered? Is it unlimited right? Is it unlimited freedom? No, not really. Provided the use is not against the law,
yeah,
isn't it? Apparently, I should not be using it for, no, suppose an office space is given to me for lease. I should not be using it ideally for pirating software,
yes,
isn't
ma'am.
it? So I have provided the use is not against the law and excludes others from so using that owned item or property. Does it exclude others? Now Pulkit is in a rented flat. Does it exclude others from using the same?
Yes, ma'am.
Tomorrow, the owner of that flat should not say, okay, Pulkit, you use this small portion, I'll bring one more person and put them there, unless it's a shared space or something, right? So it should exclude others from using that owned property. The same thing we are trying to apply in the context of intellectual property. Apparently, I cannot fence my intellect or whatsoever it is, so I should have some way of protecting this intangible asset. So what I do as an owner of a brand or whatsoever it is, as an owner of a trademark, as an owner of a patent, I am free to use it as I wish. That is, I may either use it, manufacture, sell it to my as part of my business. I don't have the infrastructure to manufacture it, so I license it to somebody or I assign it to somebody and then make use of the value of this intellectual property. Provided it's not against the law, provided I'm not infringing somebody else's IP and giving it, licensing it to someone else. And while I'm using this intellectual property, while I'm the owner, I'm called the owner of this intellectual property, I should exclude others from using that owned intellectual property. Am I correct? So I will exclude others, I'll eliminate others. So that's where I get something called exclusive right. We used a very specific nomenclature in the intellectual property space where we called it as exclusive right. exclusivity. That is the concept of property. I don't know if I'll be able to complete the whole of it. Anyway, let us proceed further, not a problem. So, what happens in case of intellectual property? It is all about commercial application of imaginative thought through solving technical and artistic challenges. This is the way I would perceive IP. So, it is basically a commercial application of whatever your imaginations are so that you are able to solve a technical or an artistic challenge. And it exists in various forms like a legal entitlement and various others. Going further, WIPO defines intellectual property. It says it's the creation of mind, like inventions, literary, artistic works, design, symbols, names, images, etc. These are all the forms of intellectual property that we have seen and known. Am I correct? So I will just go to you all. This is just a sort of what I would say as a recapitulation of what we have known so far. So how do you define a patent? You can very quickly go by each of these forms. How do you define a patent? If I were to ask you as a lawyer, how do you define a patent? Because each one of them have their own very significant features. In one line, if you have to define a patent,
Exclusive right to commercially exploit a new invention.
very good. Exclusive right to commercially exploit an invention. Very good. So that is how we look at it. And I'll just run you through some slides here. So this is the way we can sort of define patents. Uh, Exclusive right, which is granted to the owner or patentee to exclude others from either making, using, selling, or whatever it is. And to what is it granted? It is granted to a new product or process, or even an improvement of the existing product or process. So if I have to put the definition of a patent, I would say it's an exclusive right granted to a new product or process, or even an improvement. Okay. Now, this is something very, very interesting, which I always take as an example. If I say product or process and an invention or an improvement on the existing invention, this is the way we have defined, right? Have you seen these tiles? Where have you seen them?
On the footpaths, man.
On the pavements? Do you have metro stations in your cities?
Yeah.
Public places, metro stations, railway stations, airports? Why have they put
Yes.
these? Have anyone observed while walking on these public places? That's where I told you IP is all around us. It's not in our books. Anyone? They are called tactiles. TACTILES, tactiles. It is basically tiles which are helping persons who are visually impaired. You have to bring an inclusive society, right? That is what we are all talking about, inclusivity. When you talk about persons with visual impairment, how will they use these public places? For them to find that there are stairs just below this, just after another step. Which is why a Japanese, if you see this explanation here, and this has been, this has been published by WIPO at some point in time. Many years back, there was this person in Japan who came up with this idea. Tiles, all of us know, right? We have known tiles for a very long time. But what this particular inventor from the Japanese inventor did was he just made certain designs on the tiles which would enable the impaired persons to be able to use these public places easily. So if you observe, henceforth, if you observe the long bars on the tiles, it means it is good to go. They'll keep walking on that. The moment they see these dotted tiles, they stop there because it is danger from there. Now start observing these tiles. It was a very simple method, yet a very, very powerful, inclusive method of bringing public infrastructure inclusive. Okay, so this is the concept, and this was a patented subject matter way back then, about 60 years back, and today the whole world uses this idea of tactiles in all our public places. This is the concept, and this is the power of innovation. This is what it can do to the world. On the one hand, it's R&D. On the other hand, it is public welfare. This can really, really bring a lot of public welfare. That's the potential that innovations have. Right? The next illustration that I would like to give you is this: a simple Coke bottle. There's a story behind this. We are all using the one which is on the right side today, no? We have a nice ring, we can very easily open the can. But this was an innovation. Just the technology of that ring opener was an innovation. It's called the ring can opener innovation. So what happened earlier was, many years back, we used to get Coke in this format, what you're seeing on the left side of the image. And we had to either use some kind of a sharp object to cut open and then use it, and it was all over the place, or you had to find there was a separate can opener which you had to carry always with you wherever you went. It so happened that the inventor of this particular idea, of this particular invention, was on a holiday with his family. They were on the riverside, and they had carried a lot of food and beverages and other cold beverages, etc., with them, including these Coke cans. But what the inventor had forgotten was to carry a ring opener, a can opener. He had to struggle really hard. Maybe he had taken some stones and hit it hard and just tried to open the can. He had to use very primitive methods to open this can. So that is where he came back and came up with this idea of identifying something which he can create on the can itself, so that you don't have to carry another equipment or device. That's how he came up with this idea of ring can opener. This ring can opener, only that technology he sold to Coca-Cola for, I think, something like 50 cents per or 25 50 cents, very at a very nominal price. He sold per unit kind of a thing that he sold to Coca-Cola. In no time, he was able to make millions of dollars. He just became rich overnight by just this one small idea of a ring can opener. And today we find this technology across all our canned foods. Am I correct? That's again the power of innovation and patentability. Any questions so far? Okay. Then we will just go to trademark. What is a trademark? How do you define a trademark? Pooja is not here, so I hope Sachin and Deepak ji, you're all here and you're all able to take a note of what we are discussing. Just a second. My it seems to have frozen. Just 1 minute. Yeah, please go ahead. What is a trademark? Yeah, it could be a symbol, correct. And then sign, symbol.
It's
Absolutely.
basically a mark, ma'am, that identifies and distinguishes
Correct.
one business from another.
Correct. Correct. Absolutely. So I'm just trying to see if I can move this cursor. For some reason, I'm stuck. The slides seem to have frozen. I'm just trying to fix this. Absolutely. So when you talk about trademark, the whole idea is to see how you can identify the business in the commercial world. Identifying products and services to a particular business. That is the whole idea of a trademark, right? What about a copyright?
Mm.
I'm not
Ma'am,
able to
ma'am,
answer.
you can try resharing the screen.
Yeah, I'm
Can
not.
you try?
Just once again, it's not even getting there. Like to for me to even the cursor, I'm not able to find the cursor at all. It's so frozen. I can. The screen is here. I can see the chat. I can see our videos, and I can also see the slide that I'm sharing. I'm not able to move the cursor anywhere. I'm just trying to do that. I'm not sure why not. Otherwise, I'll have to like sort of close the whole thing down and then get back, which I don't want to do. Anyway, so let's just talk about copyrights. How do you perceive copyrights?
Ma'am, copyright protects any artistic expression.
Correct. So the basic idea of copyright is to protect it from as against uh, certain unauthorized use, right? Protecting from unauthorized use of literary and artistic works. So that is the whole idea here. And what about industrial designs? Can you just give me a moment while I just log out and log in once again? I'll just try
Sure.
doing that. Yeah, just hold on and please be there. Just a second.
Sure.
I'm still unable to get there. Okay, never mind. It's not working either ways. So just let me know. What about design protection? How do we consider design protection? Are you all able to hear me?
Yeah, ma'am.
Okay. We'll just continue with what it is because I'll have to really fix this later. Something problem. Yeah. Go ahead. Please go ahead. What about industrial design protection? What is it that you protect there?
Uh, Ma'am, any design of the product that relates to increase in its efficiency or something,
Yeah.
matlab it comes under the industrial design sector.
Correct, correct. So basically, what we are looking at is the aesthetics of it, right? So any product can have some aesthetics, something which appeals to the eye. It could be just about anything. It could be a graphical user interface of the website, something which is very, very highly appealing to the eye. To maybe the design of a car or an automobile or design of maybe a household item or whatsoever it is. So the design which really appeals to the eye is what is protected as an industrial design. But what we look at is purely from the perspective of the design and the appealing effect and not the functional effect of the design. That is the way we look at it. I, in fact, had an example to this, but unfortunately, I'm not able to share the slides. Anyway, so that is about industrial designs. What about geographical indications? GI tags. Where do you see GI tags? Have you come across these GI tags? Have you started observing labeling on GI tags? Maybe a fruit will have a labeling, a particular mango will have a labeling, or it will have some hologram.
Masool Park,
Mysore
something like that.
Park, absolutely, yeah. Mysore silk saris, or it could be Darjeeling tea. Maybe the authentic packaging of a Darjeeling tea would have something very specific, of a symbol of Darjeeling tea. Likewise, you will start finding those tags, and those tags are very specific to the topography. It comes because of an environmental or maybe a topography or a climatic condition, or maybe that they have been artisans for a very long time. Only they know how to manufacture those. For example, down south, we call it as Channapatna toys, right? And they manufacture these toys in a very unique way. They manufacture them with a very unique kind of wood where you will not be able to find that wood anywhere else, and the colors that they use for the toys will be very unique. So it is a manufactured article, but it will have a GI tag so that it stands well in the global market. Likewise, we have something called plant variety protection. So when we talk about plant variety protection, it is basically, if you look at the Plant Variety Protection Act, they call it as farmers' rights and breeders' rights. It mainly deals with farmers' rights and breeders' rights. So it could be propagation of new plants or new hybrid varieties of plants, new seeds that they are coming up with. So all of these are granted protection through the farmers' rights. And apart from all of this, we have something called the semiconductor and integrated circuits. As you would all see, the semiconductor integrated circuit industry or the act, the enactment was almost in deep slumber all these years. I saw the registry's details about 2 years back. And since 2000, there were only two registered semiconductor and integrated circuits under the Act. But hopefully now, with the booming semiconductor industry that's going to happen, let's hope that there will be some changes and there'll be some more registrations to the newer forms of semiconductors. But otherwise, most of them were being patented. The technology was being patented. Apart from all of this, we have another category which is called the trade secrets. In India, we still don't have an enactment as such called the Trade Secrets Act, but we are still at a stage of a trade secret bill that has been formulated. Much to explore and much to come up in the times to come. However, when we talk about trade secrets, it is exactly the opposite of a patent. In a patent, you are disclosing the entire invention. In a trade secret, you are completely keeping that information to yourself. Right? So that is the concept. And how are we protecting these trade secrets as of now? It is through confidential informations, through NDAs, and very, very robust know-how agreements. And it's basically contractual in nature that we are trying to protect these forms of intellectual property rights. So this is the way we have been considering intellectual property so far. This was just a very, very basic introduction to the different forms of IP and how we perceive intellectual property today. Hope the session was useful, and in the next session onwards, we will actually be coming up with very specific forms of IP. We are plan to focus largely on patent, trademark, copyright. That is for sure because these are going to be our core practice areas. We will also have one session on contract management. Okay, and one session on IP contracts, one session specifically on IP management, and one session on intellectual property infringements. So this is how we have lined up so that we are able to complete the life cycle of this intellectual property. Should you have any interest in getting to know more about the subject, if depending on the poll that we will just keep asking you if you're interested in specific webinars. If you are interested, we can arrange some for them. We have a great team, but it all depends on how many would attend. If all of you are interested, we can definitely arrange for some in between webinars which are slightly sector specific, I would say, and other things. So it all depends on how much interest you gain and you want to bring to the table. Okay. So right now I'll close the session. This PPT will be shared with you, but what I've also included in this PPT is a trajectory of all the, maybe for law students, it would be helpful. I've just brought about a trajectory of all the different international conventions and treaties, how they came up, what was the salient feature of these treaties. You will find them in the research reading material also, but through these PPTs also, I've just mentioned those treaties and conventions. Okay. So any questions?
Ma'am, I do have a question regarding trade secrets.
Sure.
Uh, Ma'am, in trade secrets, if we are not disclosing anything, what are we exactly protecting? Like, let's say if Coca-Cola has a trade secret that they don't know,
Yeah.
they won't disclose the composition of how the drink is made. If it's between the
Hmm.
founders, so what is the statute all about? What is the law all about?
Okay. So basically, what it should tell us is what is the, we are not going to disclose this anyway, but we are going to talk about how we are going to just lay down the certain principles of how the trade secrets have to be maintained. That would be the law primarily, right? In terms of confidentiality, it's more principle based, I would say.
Okay.
And another thing about trade secrets is now we are always talking about the moment you say trade secret, what comes to our mind is maybe a recipe of a KFC or a Coca-Cola drink, right? But did you know the data of an organization can be trade secret? Or customer profile. Suppose a bank has a customer profile. That customer profile can be a trade secret. It can be anything. Your marketing, your advertising strategy. You have a great advertising strategy. It is foolproof. That advertising strategy can be a good trade secret. Trade secrets comes in very many forms. What we are imagining is a very minuscule form. So if there are principles that can help you identify your trade secrets, it's always that, you should tell us what you want to protect. Suppose there is a whole algorithm, right, which I want to copyright protect. In that algorithm, some components of the algorithm are so critical that if I give away that data or that algorithm, that part of the algorithm, anybody can make it. So what I do, I will prepare the source code, but in between I'll remove those trade secrets and then I'll submit it for a copyright protection. I have a copyright protection, but I also have a trade secret. This is my secret. If I give this formula to someone, everybody can make this. But this is very, very unique to me. That is how we look at trade secrets.
Okay, ma'am. Got it, ma'am.
You can start reading on the bill and other things. They're all available, I think. So you can just start reading them on.
I'll just go through them.
Yeah, sure. Anyone else? I'm sorry, this laptop of mine has frozen and I could really not get to the other slides.
It's fine, ma'am. It was a wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you. So please do continue to attend these sessions, and we'll have some really, really good, instructors who will come onto these platforms and share their vast experiences. So I'm sure this is going to be very, very greatly beneficial to you all. All right. So thank you for now for today, and we'll keep you informed of the forthcoming sessions on the group. Keep the group lively. You can keep adding your posts and whatsoever it is. Or if I gave you a homework, you can just come back and discuss with me of what that homework was and what you did, what you learned out of it. Right? So you can do all of these and we'll keep this really live. and going.
Thank
Okay, and do read the materials that has been shared with you, so that sort of forms the basis of your learning, and from there we can take the learning forward. It becomes easier for you to follow, that you have studied IPR as a subject, or you are learning the IPR as a subject, so it will be easier for you to catch up with more technical aspects of the subject. All right, thank you all.
you, ma'am.